Hey beautiful people, this video is about definition of done template. And the reason why I'm doing this is I've been talking about definition of done for I think the last 5 videos, and hopefully it's useful for you and hopefully it gets you thinking about it. But I think it's time that I provided you with a reasonable template as to what this might look like. Not just as a checklist, but as something that is a reference point for you to help you with your thinking, right? So when you think about this, think about it as something that you might work with and fill in and improve on yourself, which I hope you do, and not just as simply a checklist to make sure that you have done everything and that now you don't need to do anything more and you can go home. Let's just talk about what would be in an effective definition of done, or what are the core elements of a definition of done. So functional completion is obviously one of the major elements, where we've got code written, report compiled, and slide built, right? So now we've got it to the point where we can actually have a peer review and a QA check. Those are super important as you go through the Agile Scrum development process. Meets conditions of satisfaction is a really important one, but also a quite tricky one in terms of, if I am to assess whether or not something meets the conditions of satisfaction, I've got to be able to have a customer for it, because only a customer, in the way that I talk about this work and think about this work and think about execution, only a customer can really declare satisfaction. And so if you're the Scrum Master, you can't go, I'm declaring satisfaction. Now, let me just put a caveat on that. If you're a Scrum Master for a small increment, that it's not possible to actually show a customer anything. Sometimes you are the one who is declaring satisfaction and you're aggregating multiple increments to be able to produce something that is demoable or visible to a customer, depending on what type of customer that you have, in which case you're effectively the customer for that particular sprint, which is a little bit sort of double dealing in there, so you've got to be a bit careful with that. But you have put in your peer review and your QA check. The conditions of satisfaction are super important, because you've used, hopefully, the notion of conditions, the framework of conditions of satisfaction, to design exactly the increments that you're building in and to use it as part of your agile approach. In doing that, you have clearly defined customers for elements of what it is you are able to demo at different times. And those customers can be team leads, department heads, somebody who technically knows the work really well but might be an IC, who is a tech lead, and you can identify those people as customers. So you're building this notion of conditions of satisfaction into your definition of done. The stakeholder sign off, if applicable. So if you're running your project with a lot of heavy RACIC, you will probably need to do some level of stakeholder sign off. The documentation and logging complete, we all know, and it's a little bit of a sort of laughing matter in project management circles, that this is one of the last things that get done, and in my experience it is one of the last things that gets done, unfortunately. But I keep bringing my teams back in all the project work that I've done to the importance of that, because it does come to bite you in the proverbial in the long run, and it is truly worth getting something done there. And then satisfaction confirmed. So we can say that something meets the conditions of satisfaction because we have an understanding of those ourselves, that we've built up, that we started the project with, and we've built up over the duration of the project and become more sophisticated and nuanced around it. But what we're looking to do in here is to make sure that we have a human being who is actually saying, yes, I'm declaring satisfaction, this meets my satisfaction criteria, or ours if I'm representing more than one person. So when we look at the core elements of a DoD template, we can actually look at the work that we've done meeting conditions of satisfaction, and we can acknowledge ourselves that it meets conditions of satisfaction. But what we also need to do now is we need to make sure that the conditions of satisfaction are confirmed by a customer, an outside customer. In some instances, if it's a small increment, it might be the Scrum Master, which again has some issues. But when it's a larger increment, it's actually something that can be demoable, or something that can be explored or understood by a customer for the work. And so we want to make sure that this are satisfaction is confirmed in some concrete way, whether it is a verbal acknowledgement with multiple people there understanding it, whether it is a written acknowledgement. We need to have some level of, was it successful? We need to be able to answer whether or not it delivered satisfaction for a customer. And a simple nod and a that was good may or may not be enough depending on the environment that we're working in. The way to use this template in terms of these core elements of a DoD is to be able to use it during project kickoff and sprint planning. So we are making it something that is our sort of go-to check as we start doing our sprint planning and project kickoff. We're also using it for aligning cross-functional teams. There's a lot of handoff work that happens between project teams in the absence of having good conditions of satisfaction and a good definition of done. We end up with a lot of misalignment, dropped elements of the work that we're doing, and ultimately fraying sensibilities are eroding trust. The other thing is it's useful for onboarding new team members. As you bring new team members onto a project, the more that you can give them guidelines and templates, the more effectively they're going to be able to come up to speed, obviously. There's some beautiful work that's been done by a doctor called Atul Gawande, and he talks about the importance of checklists, because at one point hospitals were doing surgeries and leaving instruments and sponges inside some of their patients after they had sewn them up. So Gawande did a lot of work with checklists and the effectiveness of those checklists as a reminder for people, not as a declaration of completion, but more as a reminder for people to be able to say that they haven't left stuff inside one of their patients. So it's also useful for us, and that book's actually a lovely read and worth looking at. And it's also super useful in retrospectives as we begin to reflect on whether or not done was actually achieved, and we begin to hone our ability to be able to bring our understanding of done and our work on a sprint and our definitions of done more tightly aligned with what it is our customer is looking for. Let's look at a couple of distinctions that matter. Is definition of done template is a structure for agreement, and conditions of satisfaction is the substance of the agreement. So when I talk about the wow factor in a delivery of a product or delivery of a demo, there's that talks to the substance of the agreement. What will it take to truly satisfy the customer? Do we understand that? How much of that have we incorporated into our definition, and how much of it do we need to pay attention to because it's an assessment that we don't really have measurement criteria around? Sometimes it's just a customer saying, yes, this looks really amazing, I am delighted with this. The templates also support human alignment, but remember, they don't ever replace it. So even when we are putting together good templates around what it is that we are looking to have in a definition of done or as conditions of satisfaction, we still have to have the conversations. The shared understanding is what brings these things alive and makes them valuable and useful inside organizations. If you view them as checklists, that once they're checked off, you're done, you're missing an opportunity to really be able to build excellent teams, deliver excellent products, and really enjoy and learn from the work that you're doing. If you find this idea of templates and building templates and understanding definition of done and contextualizing it in terms of conditions of satisfaction, looking at the difference between the structures of agreement and the substances of agreement, then I have a free white paper that I think will be valuable for you. It's on my website, which is www.jenniferkenny.com/execution. And I talk about execution by design, where I'm looking at how we incorporate some of these concepts into a very particular approach as to how we design our execution layer within a project. As you read this and as you think about your definition of done and how you're thinking about conditions of satisfaction, let me know whether or not this work is helping you. Drop something into the comments below and let me know how I can support you. I wish you the very best of luck. Thank you.